I'm just waiting. There we go. We're now live. Hi, folks. This is Eric Mishi, Executive Director of SAVE, and it is my pleasure to be here with the interim CEO and founder of the Trevor Project, Peggy Rajski. How are you, Peggy?
Hey, Eric. Hi, Josie. Wonderful to see you. I'm very happy to be here.
Now you're on West Coast time, right?
I be West Coast. Yeah, I live in Los Angeles.
Yeah, well, appreciate you coming on and chatting with us. And this is Pride Month and an opportunity for us to talk about some of the issues and opportunities and challenges. And since both of our organizations are involved in suicide prevention and raising awareness about suicide and what we can all do to improve the lives of everybody and save lives across the board, I thought it'd be great, first of all, to kind of start out and learn about how did the Trevor Project come about?
Well, it has a very unusual origin story, a rare one for a nonprofit working in this area. But basically, Trevor came about because I went to a one-man show, a snowy night in New York at La Mama. I saw a person do a 5-minute monologue that was a character sketch about a 13-year-old, an innocent, vivacious, enthusiastic musical theater fan named Trevor, who develops a crush on his best friend, Pinky Faraday, a high school athlete. And overnight word spreads at school that he's gay, and he decides that it would probably be better if he weren't around. And he decides to make an attempt on his life. And I was so moved. That piece made me laugh and cry equally. And I had a very good friend of mine named Randy Stone come see it, a fellow producer, and he felt the same, and we decided to make it into a film. Cut to less than a year later, we had optioned the rights, worked with the screenplay, or rather worked with the writer of the show, and he wrote the screenplay. Their name's Celeste Lacine. And we made this film, and holy moly, it was my directorial debut. My background, by the way, is in entertainment. So it's, again, this is somewhat unusual that this leads to this very incredible organization that is as large as it is today. But basically, Randy and I both worked in the film business. We called in a bunch of favors, got the thing made, and holy moly, it goes on and it wins an Academy Award. Right? So here's Trevor, our wonderful short film, has an Oscar. And because of that prestige, it actually opened a lot of doors and eventually led to our getting the first of its kind slot to air on HBO. And another big reason that was important is because Ellen DeGeneres agreed to host this. And that was in 1998, the year Ellen came out. And some folks may remember this as I do. She was on the cover of every magazine. We knew it was going to get a lot of attention because she was hosting. And in fact, it did. And I was just celebrating that this was a coup to get this spot for a little film on HBO. And a friend said to me, there are a lot of kids who probably will identify like your lead character. You should give them a place to turn. And it stopped me in my tracks because I realized she was right. And quickly, I thought there must be something out there. And I researched it quickly. I found 2 lines. They weren't 24/7. They were supposedly open on the weekend. I waited till the weekend. I called both, and I didn't get an answer at either. And that was scary and sobering. And it was at that point I just went, well, you can either do something or not. And I decided to do something. So I quickly organized. I invited Randy Stone, the producer, and Celeste Lacine to join me in this effort to launch in 3 months' time a 24/7 crisis intervention work. Through Friends of Friends network, 6 Degrees of Separation, I connected with a wonderful man who ran the D.D. Hirsch Mental Health Center at the time. He also happened to identify as gay himself, and he had always wanted to do something like this. And so we made a partnership that he would train the counselors and we would raise the money to underwrite the service, and we did that. So in August of 1998, the Trevor Project and the Trevor Helpline was born. And now we cut to 25 years later and then some, and we are now a 500-person organization. We have opened operations in Mexico approximately 2 years ago. We now help address, we have had contact in the last year from over 500,000 folks via digital, text, and chat. Actually, I'm so sorry. I mean, we still do phone calls, but we also do chat and text. And we're the only people around who've been doing this as strongly and consistently as we have in all these decades since.
So that's a pretty incredible story. I mean, it's a reminder that, the work that gets done, in this space gets done when people see a need and step up and lead. And so thankfully you and Randy and others stepped up and saw a need and felt that there was an opportunity to help folks. And so as you look at the work you're doing today, how has the world changed in those 25 years?
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, there wasn't text and chat. There were barely cell phones when we started. So we certainly have changed with the times. When we launched, we also did in fact launch a website with some supportive resources at that point. But since then, we have greatly expanded our resource portal online for both queer and questioning young people, as well as supportive allies and adults who want to help them. But really what we did is we got much clearer about what we see as our theory of change. Trevor has the bold goal of ending suicide among LGBTQ plus young people. And what we realize is you cannot do that by crisis intervention alone. It's essential we have supportive, trained counselors available for the young people who reach out to us 24/7. But we also have the goal to prevent them from entering crisis in the first place. And with that in mind, we have a very healthy, robust prevention series of programs. And these include, we have done groundbreaking research that is quoted nationwide, major outlets, that really, in fact, was used to help get legislation passed, to not only help launch 988, a nationwide crisis call line, but to make sure there was specialized funding for an LGBTQ plus service. And thanks to our advocacy team and the vision for that, I'm so proud. That took 5 years to pass, and it launched approximately a year and a half ago. Another one of our, besides research and advocacy, and by the way, our team has helped defeat something like, oh God, how many? We helped defeat scores of legislation in this past year across the country. And we advocate both at the national level and at state level, and often work behind the scenes to help state organizations help combat negative legislation that will hurt our audience. We also, with our ally building efforts, which is what our public education and training programs are, I think we've done something like in this year alone, 135 trainings, and there's something like more than 6,000 trainees were reached through doing it. I know. And then here, I'm just looking up my latest stats, but our latest survey, which just came out, we do an annual survey that looks at what the presenting issues are impacting the mental health and safety of LGBTQ plus young people. And we got over 18,000 young people to participate. There's no other study that's coordinated that reaches that many people to participate. So this is part of why our research has as much authority as it does in the field, as well as being peer reviewed. So last but not least, we have this incredible thing called Trevor Space, which is a peer-to-peer online community. And this is what's great. You're giving people, we know young kids are not feeling, many young people are not feeling safe in their home environments and their school environments. And what Trevor Space allows you is to have age-appropriate community and experiences online when and if you're not safe getting that physically where you are. And it has been very, very effective. We regularly poll users about what they see, need, and prefer. And certainly people give each other advice about issues related to their sexual orientation or identity. But really, this is a place where you get to go have nerd out with your friends about whatever, gaming, music, your favorite movie stars, films, art, et cetera, et cetera. So it really is an incredible place and safe space, because it's moderated, to socialize. So that stuff was not happening at the start of Trevor. And it really is only over the last 5 years or so that we've been able to grow the reach and impact of those programs to the levels they are right now.
So obviously, evolution of technology has been a good thing and a bad thing, and kind of in between thing. Obviously, gives us the opportunity to reach more people and to kind of, particularly in an environment where we're meeting young people where they're at, right? We're meeting them in those places where they're at, where they're looking for connections and they're looking for help and resources. So as you look at the work that you're doing today, and you look at the environment and the world that we're in today, what do you see as both the greatest challenges to the work that you do and the greatest opportunities available in the work that you're doing?
That's such a great question, Eric. Here's some of the biggest challenges. And I don't think this will be a big surprise to anyone, but 2024 set another record for anti-LGBTQ plus legislation introduced or considered in the United States. There were more than 600 anti-LGBTQ plus bills introduced in states across the whole country. But the opportunity is for organizations like ours to do the work to fight, educate, and defeat those bills. And the good news is nearly 90% of those 600 were defeated. And that's part of what gets me up in the morning and keeps, I know, not only myself, but all of us who work at Trevor going. We do know how much those bills and the press around them are negatively impacting the mental health of our beloved young ones. And I think we found in our latest survey that 90% of LGBTQ plus young people did say that this noise was negatively impacting their mental health. And, the advantages of the internet are great for things like Trevor Space and for folks who have no other way to create community. But we're also facing people well-intentioned who think it would be helpful to impose more restrictions. For example, requiring parental access to certain sites. Approximately half of the people that are homeless young people that are homeless in this country, I think it's actually about 40%, are LGBTQ plus and were kicked out of their homes because their families and parents weren't accepting. So while I know it's well intentioned and we all see the need to make adjustments to the way social media sites work, the unregulated nature of and the havoc that's been caused as a result of that, and the damage it's done to many people, but particularly the vitriol that gets expressed towards our stakeholders. I always look for opportunity and a challenge, and I feel like our programs are part of the way that we can combat that. I also think it takes a village.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why having alliances with folks like you and organizations like SAVE and some of our other peer LGBTQ plus orgs, it's the collective that is going to move the needle further, and it definitely needs moving in a positive direction. So those are the opportunities I see. And certainly our combined impact and power online, even by doing something like this. These are all the things now that help us leverage what we can bring to bear. It's also technology that allowed us to get 18,000 people to participate, in a survey. And, like all things, nuance, discernment, and shades of gray are what is being asked of all of us when we think about these systemic issues that are plaguing not only our country, but for me, our constituency, the young people that Trevor was founded to serve.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you bring up the issue, obviously, about social media, in the access and things like that. A lot of the work we've been doing over the last few months on social media really is focused on maintaining access, ensuring people continue to have access, and at the same time keeping it safe and inclusive. And I think we should be able to do all of those things. Technology created these platforms. I think technology ought to allow us to continue to provide access to everybody, and at the same time to make them safe. And the idea that you would censor, you would restrict access and things like that, I don't know that we think that that's in anybody's interest. We think particularly, I when I was growing up as a kid, my dad down in the basement, and people of a certain age will remember what this is had a ham radio and a Morse code, right? And he would sit down there for hours and hours and hours, and that's how he communicated with the world, right? Fast forward, 40 years later, and my kids, I remember a story with my kids that we had gotten them an Xbox, and they were playing games on the Xbox, and all of a sudden they weren't playing the game. They weren't playing the Xbox anymore. So I asked my son, I said, what's going on? Why aren't you playing with this anymore? He goes, well, because our Xbox doesn't have a microphone, so I can't talk to my friends, and it's no fun if we can't talk to our friends. And I remember my immediate reaction to that, Peggy, was, you have an Xbox. What are you complaining about? And then I thought about my dad, and I thought that ham radio was my dad's Xbox, right? That was how he communicated with the world. And so the next day I went and got an Xbox so that my kids could talk to the world around them. And so the technology that is out there, and social media that's out there, is the world our kids and their kids are going to live in. And I think all of us as adults and policymakers and those who are involved in public policy have to be mindful of the fact that the policies that we're looking at today are going to impact young people far beyond the moment that we're living in right now.
Yeah, it's true, Eric. And I also think your willingness to, I would call it humility, have humility, where your kids were concerned and actually actively listen to them, are traits that are valuable for all of us. And especially for folks, as we say, we're of a certain generation, and that bridge between what things were like at our pivotal maturation years and navigating what are the middle school years, high school, and college, because frankly, we both know the rate of suicide among college students is still very alarming and high. So that willingness to invest the extra effort in not being dismissive of both technology changes, but social and cultural ones, is really important. And that's what I am proud about Trevor, because it continues. It has a culture of continuous improvement. We're always looking for ways to do things better. We have seen ways in which we can positively leverage tools and devices like AI. Mm-hmm. In fact, we were lucky enough to collaborate with Google a couple of years ago, where they helped us come up with trainings for counselors to interact in ways that were generated better results for counselors about mimicking what a live interaction would be. And we really were one of the first to pilot with Riley and Keo as our arbiters. And not only did it increase the outcomes, positive outcomes for counselors who felt more confident as they got on a call, it also helped us expand training so that we now can tap volunteers from across all 50 states. They don't have to be restricted to in-person trainings in either New York or Los Angeles, which is what we had to do for many, many years, where our two physical call centers were located. And now we're all remote. And also, you can do things like use technology, software, and AI to help much more quickly scan high volume of content and interactions that occur on our own platforms. And like we had a collaboration with Facebook where even they started to help services like ours would pay attention on their social media site and post, or rather note, flag common indicators and words that are associated with suicidal ideation. So that's the way that I see how technology can definitely be harnessed for good. And that's
I mean, I think it really does take the inputs of those in the nonprofit space and elsewhere to really insist that those platforms are responsive in that way. There's it's as I've said, is that the technology that created these platforms is the same technology that can help them be useful and better at solving some of the social challenges and dilemmas that we face. And so I think how we impress upon the owners of those platforms, the creators of those platforms, that there's also a broader common good that's got to come with this, I think is extraordinarily important. And so we've got a few minutes left, and while we do, Peggy, I would love to get your sense of how can people get more involved with the Trevor Project? How can folks that want to be advocates and allies, what are some of your thoughts and advice on how people can get involved? Where is it you think that people really need to sit up and take focus and get prepared to help support the work that you're doing?
Oh, this is the perfect question to ask, because I think people can be amazed when you go, there's such simple, small actions you can take that will be helpful and seen as supportive by the young people we care about. So I mentioned that 18,000 respondents we had, we just asked them, what can people in your life do to show support and acceptance? Here are the top answers. I'm going to read them off. Trusting that I know who I am and how I identify. Standing up for me in front of other people. Not supporting politicians that advocate for anti-LGBTQ plus legislation. Looking up things about LGBTQ plus identities on their own to better understand. In other words, you don't always have to put the burden on them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you see a young person who tells you they're non-binary, or you meet somebody who says they're asexual, if you see somebody who's trans, look it up. They're great resources we have, and I know you have a lot of mental health resources as well. The other biggie, and this is so simple, respecting pronouns. This is why the last few places I've been involved with, the organizations have included pronouns in their signatures. I think it's great. We also start with, whenever we have meetings or meet new people, and in fact, I miss doing it today, but when you introduce yourself, I go, hi, I'm Peggy Rajski. My pronouns are she, her, and happy to meet you. So right away, I'm signaling to whoever someone might, and however someone might identify, that I'm supportive just because I mentioned what my pronouns are. And I didn't put it on them. Nobody else has to answer in kind. I'm cool whether they do or not. But that's a signal to other people and strangers that I might be meeting where I stand on it. It's also things like expressing support for how they express their gender, which I know for a lot of people can be unsettling because it's unusual to them. Ask questions about their identities to better understand if you are in fact curious. Accepting their partners. They appreciate support on social media, and they love seeing pride flags displayed outside homes and businesses. So that's a biggie. The other thing I think that how you can help us, we're always looking for allies and folks in the community to help our advocacy team. You can sign up through our website for advocacy alerts that tell you when and who you might contact for both impact on national issues that are emerging and legislation, as well as on the state level. You can sign up for our email newsletter, and that'll send you regular updates about our work and other ways to get involved. You can, of course, make a donation to Trevor, especially during Pride when we have so many matches going on. So your $1, $10, or $100 gets tripled and can go much farther. And you know, here's the real truth. We rely on our supporters and our wonderful partners to help us do what we do, which is to help save lives and to help prevent those lives from being at risk in the first place.
Well, this is entirely our privilege to have the opportunity to chat with you, Peggy. I've had the privilege over the last few months to get to know you and the work that you're doing through our work with the National Council for Suicide Prevention. And, you know, I have often told my children the world needs leaders. And you are proof positive that leadership matters. You are a good role model for my kids and other kids who are looking for someone who took a chance to stand up and to take a leadership role to make the world a better place. And so I applaud you for that. And we're grateful for that. Grateful for the opportunity to partner with you, to amplify your work, and have a few minutes with you today here to learn more about the Trevor Project. And we will continue to raise up your work and share your work with our community, and wish you always the best of luck in what you're doing.
Thank you so much, Eric. And I'm just going to say one more time how important allies are. I myself am a straight, white, cisgender woman, and I did not imagine when I made that film I'd be the godmother of an LGBTQ plus suicide crisis hotline. But there you go. Life is full of surprises. So, you know, we all need help. This cause needs help from everyone. So all takers welcome. And thank you for giving me the chance to share this with your audience. Happy Pride, everybody.
Happy Pride, Peggy. Thank you.
Bye-bye.